I made a huge mistake by moving my listings from eBay.com over to eBay.ca. Find out why, and also find out why I have opted out of the eBay International Shipping Program in this week's episode of the Business of Reselling podcast. This is the Business of Reselling podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Oman. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 64. Yep, I skipped a week. I did it again. I know. But I'm back, and I'm also going to be adding a new What Sold on eBay video for February soon, as today is the last day of February, and I have some pretty interesting sales to share. So stay tuned for that. That'll be coming up on the YouTube channel in a few days. And make sure you're subscribed. If you're not, youtube.com/@Storagewarrior podcast is the link for that to get all the videos as well as all of the episodes of this podcast. Today, I'm talking about two things: how I royally screwed up by transferring my listings from ebay.com over to .ca, and why I have opted out of eBay International Shipping. I'm really upset with myself, honestly. I've alluded to it before, but it's really getting to me these days, and I need to vent. So let's get right into it. You're going to have to listen to the end to find out why I opted out of eBay International Shipping. I know that's a hot topic that's been on a lot of Canadian resellers' minds. Some people love the program, other people hate it. I've decided that I hate it. You're going to have to listen to the end for that. Let's first talk about my regrets and why I think that I really messed up. If you've been listening for a while, you know that when the de minimis exemption was removed at the end of August 2025, I began the slow and tedious task of moving almost all of my listings from .com to .ca. There were many ways that many different resellers went about this project. I am not the only person to have taken it on. I did it one by one. I did it listing by listing for uh 2,500 listings out of 4,000 or so that we had. There were ways to bulk cross post, and I knew this. 3D Sellers is a good tool for it, but I decided that I wanted to cull crappy inventory from the store. I also needed to make some changes to my boilerplate text that I have in my listing descriptions. And I just didn't feel like a bulk transfer was going to work. So I did it one by one, and it took me 3 months, 4 months. As I went through that project, I also took some stuff out of the store that I didn't want to sell anymore, and I was left with about 300 listings at the end that I just never ever renewed, and eventually they actually expired from the store, which was kind of annoying, and I ended up losing all those 300 listings, and I still have to go find them in the back of the shop. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. I left a lot of listings on .com. I left any print matter, comic books that were printed in the USA, books, CDs, vinyl records, any media, because all of that is largely tariff-free. Anything that was made in the USA, I also left on .com. So I was left at the end with about 70% of my listings on .ca and 30% on .com, and it used to be 98 too. Why did I do it? I wanted to appeal to a broader Canadian market. I thought pivoting, even knowing that, the buyer pool in Canada is obviously extremely small compared to the US, but I thought, I wanted to appeal to more Canadians. We were starting to use BidRush, and I thought that BidRush would be a good complement to eBay Canada, as the buyers on BidRush are also largely Canadian. And I thought it would be neat to kind of send them back and forth between the store and the auctions. That was reasonably effective, and I definitely don't regret that part of it. And also at the time, the eBay International Shipping Program for Canadian resellers was about to roll out. And I was interested in learning if the benefits of that program would help with, bringing more international sales to my .ca listings. So that was kind of the logic behind it. Um, but by December, and if you've been listening for a while, you know I was starting to question my choice to do that since sales dwindled a lot, as I expected them to do, because, largely you're not getting as much traffic on .ca as you are on .com. And once I was opted in without my knowledge to EIS, it was really not bringing in a whole lot of sales at all. Actually, there was an initial kind of bump of sales from EIS when I was first enrolled, and I thought, oh, maybe this is going to be good, and then it dwindled away to pretty much nothing. So today, I can say with certainty that I really wish I hadn't done this project. I wish I hadn't. Now we know, as of last week, or a couple days ago anyways, global tariffs to the US have been reduced to 10%, pretty much across the board and regardless of country of origin. This makes it much easier to work that into a .com shipping policy for American buyers. Um, and so for that, even for that reason alone, I think listing on .com in the last couple of days has actually gotten much easier than it was even a few weeks ago. So what I had been doing with US buyers with regards to tariffs is, if the shipping, like, I increased a lot of my shipping policies on .ca um, for Americans. And I also, I would ask them to pay the additional tariffs with PayPal when they didn't, like, when they exceeded the amount of shipping that I had charged. And that was actually working fine. Buyers were largely understanding. I only had a couple of cancellations using that. And then last week, I had one US buyer who would not reply. I had an item made in Japan that was over $100. I had to collect additional money. They would not reply to me. And then another one who insisted that UPS would be absolutely fine because she had just bought something with UPS and they didn't charge her any tariffs. So this obviously wouldn't happen again. And I assured her that yes, she would be charged tariffs, and that those tariffs would actually be close to $100 Canadian. So the item was a paperweight, a rubber held glass paperweight. These are always fun, and since held glass was made in British Columbia, these are relatively easy pieces to come by, but they're very sought out. And this particular paperweight was a nice one. I listed it for 130 Canadian dollars, and it sold in like a day or so. So I was really pleased with that. So the tariffs were 35 or 25%. I forget what they were on Canada. A lot, plus the brokerage fee, and plus IEPA reciprocal tariffs. I think those were still in effect. And then, of course, if I shipped at UPS, they're going to charge at least another $25 brokerage fee. Anyway, on Net Parcel, which is where I was looking at the rate, it was going to come out to like 95 Canadian dollars, whereas like she could have paid me and it would have only been 65. I tried to explain this to her. She didn't care and said to ship it with UPS. I'm like, fine. So I did. In the end, it was super easy to do this. I actually set it up through Shippo. And because in Shippo, you can set your UPS shipments to be abandoned if the buyer refuses to pay the tariffs, which is obviously what I would want, because the only other alternative is for them to send it back and then charge you the tariffs, and I'm not going to pay them. So that's what I did. I sent them both off, and I don't know why I was so reluctant to do this before. Buyers are given a warning that they're purchasing from a Canadian and that there may be tariffs and brokerage applied upon delivery. eBay has said that negative feedback will be removed if it's in regards to tariffs. So I don't know why I thought this would be such a hassle. It really wasn't. Now, I have not checked the tracking on those items, so I don't know if the buyers received them, if they paid, or what's going on with that. But I haven't heard from either of them, so I'm just going to assume that no news is good news with that. So, just given that experience and the change in the rates that tariffs are applied, it looks like it's going to be much simpler, at least for the next 150 days until it expires, and then who knows what. I'm listing almost everything on .com again, including the made in China items. I'm keeping .ca for things that are especially Canadian, or that I think will appeal more to Canadian buyers than to US buyers, which isn't that many things. The clothing and accessories that we do are pretty much all going on Poshmark now. I'm not even bothering with eBay for that, with the exception of sterling silver, because I can turn offers off on eBay, whereas you can't on Posh. You have to you don't have to accept offers, but you have to receive offers. You can't opt out of that, and it's just annoying. I'm not gonna discount silver. So, sterling silver still goes on eBay.ca, no offers allowed. And yeah, that's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing. So, my listings are still about 30 it's under no, it's over 35% now on .com and over 60% on .ca still. I am not going to go through the process of taking those .ca listings and putting them back on .com. I can't see myself doing that, at least not in the near future. I will just eat it. I'm just going to eat my mistake, deal with it, run sales on .ca, use my mailing list which is mostly Canadians, my MailChimp newsletter list to try and sell stuff that way. Maybe we'll take things down and hawk them through bid rush auctions. I don't know, but that was so much work, and I don't know. I have a hard time thinking about all of the way more productive things that I could have been doing instead for all of last fall. It's like, sometimes just going through the motions of something makes you feel like you're being productive. It's like busy work, and then you feel like you're getting somewhere, and in the end it didn't drive you forward. That's how I feel. And it's just really upsetting. But it is what it is, and I own up to it, and you know, onwards. We just pivot back and keep trying to find success in this very, very strange world that we're currently living in. Related to this, and so here's the part about eBay international shipping. I opted out of eBay international shipping last Thursday. I was opted in, I think, around November. They didn't tell me that I was opted in. I just suddenly started getting EIS sales, and I didn't know why. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm opted in. But it's been months now, and they keep saying that they're making improvements to the program. I don't see these improvements. Um, the rates, or I should say, the eBay international shipping program was not showing up on all of my listings. In fact, it wasn't showing up on many of my listings, and I was not about to go through 2,600 listings and um, figure out why, or like break it all down with which ones were showing EIS and which ones weren't. And then eBay says, oh, just email us your links to your listings and we'll investigate if EIS isn't showing up on them. It's like, really? Like, am I going to go through 2,600 listings, figure out each one, and then send you guys like a spreadsheet with like 1,300 listing links in it? Like URLs they're not going to, they can't even reply to an email that says like, where do I click the button to opt in? Like, they don't reply ever, is my point. Like 90% of the time. This has been the experience of most resellers that I've talked to. It has certainly been my experience. So why on earth would I do the work of figuring out which of my listings are showing eBay international shipping, which ones aren't, and then saying, here, eBay, figure this out? They're not going to figure it out. It's too much work. Too much work for me, too much work for them. Anyway, it is not being applied consistently across listings. They don't appear to have fixed that or addressed it or helped sellers understand in any way why this is happening. It's extremely slow. It did speed up since the program was rolled out. I'll give them that. But it is very slow. It's expensive for the buyer because it adds your domestic Canadian shipping rate to the shipping rate that they're charging to the buyer, and it's just, yeah, it just makes it really, really pricey. And I'm not sure that they actually made changes to the way that they were applying tariff rates since the tariffs were ruled unconstitutional last week. I don't think they've changed it to the new 10%. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that, 2 or 3 days into that change, they had not applied it. So, and I know there wasn't a whole lot of notice given for this change, but there was a few days, and they don't seem to have addressed their timeline for fixing that. So listings may be showing tariff rates that are not accurate anymore, and then the buyers won't buy because they see that and they go, "Why am I being charged a 30% tariff when it's supposed to be 10 or whatever?" So one of the Also, one of the benefits of EIS is supposed to be that they will handle returns and item not as described requests and things like that. That if there's an issue with the shipment, as long as you have successfully gotten that item to the hub in Mississauga, their responsibility takes over from there. And if there's issues with it, you'll get to keep your money. And that's a nice protection to have. But, I always took the risk of returns in the past on 100% of my listings. And I don't know what percentage of my listings were showing eBay international shipping. So I don't know what percentage of my listings actually had those seller protections attached to them. So it's not really a benefit to have them handle it for me if it's not showing up on all of my listings, and it accounted for 5.9% of my sales on .ca in the last 90 days. That's how many of my sales were through the eBay international shipping program. Can we conclude that this helps sellers get sales? No, we can't. 5.9%? No, it's just not adding any value. And of course, as I already mentioned, every time you have a question about EIS, it goes unanswered about 90% of the time. So all of our comments are just falling on deaf ears, or maybe the ears aren't deaf. They're just willfully neglectful. I don't know what it is. But, it doesn't work. I don't think that the program works in its current iteration. Now, I opted out last Thursday on February 26th, and they called me the very next day to find out why. So I gave it to them. I gave all of this to them. I explained the lack of added value. Um, and the person that I spoke to, who was an American, seemed genuinely surprised that I had all of these complaints about EIS. And you know what? There are people who work at eBay who are in these reseller groups. Like, they're in the groups. They don't participate in the groups, but they're there. They're members of the Facebook reseller groups that I'm a part of. And they can see the complaints and the questions and the concerns, legitimate concerns that Canadian resellers have about this program because we post about it a lot. This person should not have been surprised to hear my feedback. If people at eBay who are already in these groups were looking at the dialogue and the discourse that is happening there, they would already have all of the feedback that they need to make the program better. Why are they not reading the feedback? I can't explain it. I can't explain it. I couldn't believe that this person was surprised that it's so easy to get the information that they need. They did not need to hire an American consultant to do it. It's all right there in public forums, in groups. We're talking about it. And those people who work at eBay are members of those groups. It's unbelievable. So anyway, rant over. My own ship policies are back on .ca. I've made a couple of adjustments to some of them. And if my shipping fees don't cover the tariffs, I will just tell the buyer I'm sending UPS. You may have a fee at the end. Deal with it. Is it going to bring me more sales than when I was in the program? I kind of expect it to, since my shipping policies are much more reasonable on the surface than the eBay international shipping rates. And I assume that some significant percentage of my listings were showing EIS rates. I just don't know how many, and I'll never know. So I do think that I'll probably get a few more sales by not being in the program. It'll take a while to figure that out. Sales have been about the same. It's only been 2 days since I opted out, so I don't know. But I don't think it's going to be a really significant bump because these are .ca listings, and I just know that .com brings more visibility than .ca, and I'm certainly not going to go to the trouble, like I already said, of transferring everything back over to .com right now, and probably never. So that's what's going on. I screwed up in a big way. I maybe trusted eBay Canada to be more transparent or just be, I don't know, more professional about the way they rolled out EIS. I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and maybe I shouldn't have. At the end of the day, eBay is a tool. It's It's a tool for our business. You can choose to use eBay as a tool to reach buyers, to collect payments, to take care of a lot of the business operational activities for you, and you pay fees in exchange for that. You can use Poshmark. If you like that better, you can use Marketplace. We have these tools, and at the end of the day, we need to continue to focus as resellers and as entrepreneurs on the parts of our business that we can control, And I don't think I did that. I don't think that I did that. It's fundamentally what makes small business so resilient, and I did not follow the philosophy. It is what it is. That's how I feel. Lots of ranting today. Sorry, folks. I hope you found it interesting. I would love to know if you are in the eBay International Shipping Program. Do you like it? And it's fine if you do. I hope you do. I hope you like it. I hope it's working for you, but I want your opinion. I would love to know if you like the program, if you're happy with it, whether you opted in or opted out. Anyway, your thoughts are very welcome, and I'd love to have a conversation about that in the comments. So please let me know how you feel. I definitely have let you know how I feel. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. You can do that at businessofreselling.com. And don't forget, we are always buying. Hook us up with a great pick in British Columbia, and you will receive a gift. Talk to you soon. Have a wonderful week and happy reselling.